You'd have told me that there was going to be a little dead air, I would have sang a little, but I don't want to run your audience off.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. Well, very good. I know we're kind of squeezed for time today. You've got a meeting at 9 o'clock, so I know we will rush through this. And instead of us going into as much detail, we'll just kind of do a summary of it, everything, okay? Some numbers were up. Admissions were up. Some numbers are looking very good. And then others, they're kind of questionable why they aren't showing up the way you would expect them to.
So I will say that there's two things that are happening. First of all, we're doing a phenomenal job of reaching and helping our community. We've got lots of people in the beds today. We've got a census of 18. I've talked to some folks who have some history here, and they can't think of a time whenever we've had a sustained census this high. And, a lot of that is working with our swing bed patients, and a lot of that, is obviously seasonality. But I think it's also a collaboration of a bunch of work from a lot of people to be able to meet the needs of the folks here. So we're seeing that, but we're also having some issues with, we are still on the tail end of a lot of financials, not financial, but some issues with our financials. For instance, there was another error that we caught that was about a $300,000 miss. That was a non-cash miss, so we just booked it in the month of December. And then we've had, I think.
But it does affect the financials.
It affects the financials, but it's non-cash.
Right.
So it's so two things. One, we have that, and then we've also had, we've been talking about bad debt for a long time.
Right.
And when we write off bad debt, so we take a big administrative loss. We took about a little over $1 million of administrative loss in bad debt this month. We've had some bad debt that we wrote off that was sort of collected in 2020 and 2021 that we wrote off, and so that was cash that we were never going to have, but we have to account for it. So that happened. And then, but I think that we are still struggling. We've talked a little to the board about having somebody come in and sort of do a pillar to post look at our financials, because our cash is doing well. Today we're on track to, I think, $117,000 today, and we need to be above $100,000 a day, and we've been over $100,000. We collected $2.3 million last month, and we're on track to collect around $2.4 million this month. And we're on track to collect another 2.4 or 2.5 million next month, depending upon the short month. So we're seeing the right things cash wise,
right,
but our financials aren't reflective of that yet.
Exactly, and so that really it kind of throw when you have a meeting and you try to explain that and you're trying to sit there and go, we're in the process of figuring this out, but it is there. It does show up when you put it in black and white. It does show. Nothing you can do about that.
And we're trying to be transparent about what we're doing about that. But again, I will say that one of the things that has been a struggle here is that our financials have been so irregular that it's really hard to pick patterns out of that and hard to predict that. So I think that one of the things that we'll focus on over the next year or so is to be able to get that stable so that we can make good decisions based on our cash data and based on our financial data. And so I think that'll be helpful to us.
And everybody thinks, it's been over a year now. They should have all this taken care of. Rome didn't collapse in a day, and it wasn't built in a day. No. You've got to identify what the issues were, so you can correct those.
Yep.
And it takes time. You had a lot of issues. I know when you showed up, you're still trying to correct other issues that really weren't even related to financials, just trying to get the hospital back in the proper operation status.
And I will say that we're doing a lot of things with that. We've done some reorganization of the staff. We've put some good people. Tabitha, and Tabitha's now helping us on our ED because she's doing a phenomenal job there. We've sort of shuffled around, and we've gotten Angela Christensen,
who used to be at the hospital years ago.
And she's now filling that role. So I think that particularly with the increase in volume in our ER and the increase in our volume in our med surge, and with some computer things that we're bringing online, that was just too much for one person to do. And John's a wonderful leader, and he's a good clinician, but that was just too much. So in order to get people where they need to be so that they can do what they need to do, we've done an awful lot of that in the last in the last 4 months. It's only been 4 months.
I know. It seems like a lot longer.
In some days it feels like 4 months in a day.
Yeah, I bet it does.
Yeah.
We all have those days that are four. I think I saw something the other day. One of our guys that works at Town Screen, he flew to Korea, so he had a 40-hour day.
Holy
and
smokes.
I said, and he probably still didn't get everything done in a 40-hour day.
No.
But those are the kind of days that'll wear you out. But they feel like that. They just drag on. But you find out as in your position, where you see that there might have been a little error made here, that compounds because it goes through different departments, and then you've got to correct it in every department and get it back.
Yep. And I will say that, all kidding aside about, the effort, this effort has been fun.
Mm-hmm.
We've got good people here doing good things for the people of this county. We've got, and they have been remarkably open to change. Now, there are some folks that are struggling with that more than others because that's the normal thing in any organization. But our leadership team has been very responsive. We were having some conversations yesterday about how to maybe staff a little differently because we've got a different mix in the med-surg unit. Mm-hmm. And I was working with Ashley, and Ashley started working with John and some other members of the team to figure out how best to do that so that we could accommodate this. They're being very, very open and very, very good.
Okay. The SMDH Family Clinic is now open on Saturdays. How is that working out?
It's going extremely well this week. Dr. Bland was there. And it's only 6 hours, and she saw 10 patients in 6 hours. We've seen probably, this is a guess because we had a missing day, I would say we've probably seen between 8 and 9 patients a day that day.
On Saturdays.
And I've actually talked to some folks who are very happy about having access to that on the weekends.
For those who work and can't get to the clinic on time, it's a great option to be able to go in on Saturday.
Well, and I've also heard that one of the things that people like about our clinic is the late hours during the day. So you don't have to race home right before work. We stay open a little later so that we can get folks in later in the evening. And now with that weekend coverage, I think that will help a lot.
Very good. And with the now you have a contract with the Dane County Sheriff's Department with the prison and the prisoners, and so that's going to help out a little bit. And you've got practitioners. We had Sam Welch in last week, and she talked about having that day to go down there for her first time.
Yeah, she's as a new provider in our clinic, she's doing amazing stuff. I can't speak highly enough of the folks that we have in our clinic. I think I told you when I first got here, my first hour in this job was in the clinic, and it had opportunity. And I was talking to Dr. Al yesterday because I was over there, and you can walk through the clinic, it just feels differently. I mean, it's calmer, it's more organized. I want to thank the whole team out there, all the providers, the folks that work in registration. Chrissy's done a wonderful job. Tina, who we put over there to help with the clinical side. All of that is coming together, and we're in a much better place. Not perfect, but much, much better.
But it's one step at a time, and that's the hardest thing when you try and convince people. It has to be that way because you have to build on the foundation. You just can't suddenly say we're going to start here, halfway through, and because then things on the bottom that aren't done are never going to get done, and then the things above it, they actually needed that foundation below them.
And interestingly, not every decision you make as quickly as we're making them are going to be perfect the first time because there's going to be things that you don't know. So there'll be places that we go and we go, oh, wait a minute, that's not the right thing to do right now. Or we didn't know that the reason we were doing that was caused by something else, and we have to go back and fix that something else first before this makes sense. And I think we've done a pretty good job because, listening to the team and talking about how they got where they are, I think we're doing a pretty good job of making those without a whole lot of hitches in the get along.
Yeah, I mean, come on in, just have no transmission lines there for, and now you still got an issue with a sink in the cafeteria department.
It will never stop.
No, these things always come up. It just so happens they're all coming up right when you got.
Well, and I will say that bless their hearts. I have never.
They waited for you.
Yeah, I've never been in a place that has been as surveyed as this place has been. We've had 8 surveys in the 4 months that I've been there.
I was just going to ask you about that.
Yeah, we've had 8 surveys in the 4 months I've been there, and by and large, we've responded very well to that. We still have some. I would say some technical issues in the lab. I said this to the board the other night, and I said this to some board members, and I said it to our leadership team. Nobody cares about their wife more than I do, and I would let my wife have work done there without any hesitation or any qualms whatsoever. The work they do in the lab is phenomenal. Now, there were some technical fouls whenever the surveyors came in that we're working through, and we've got Melissa. Have you met her yet? Melissa Carter.
No, I have not. I have not.
She's on this. You're going to love her.
Yeah.
She's from Louisiana and talks like it. She's going to be
She was
awesome.
scheduled to come in, but she was the only one there at that time, so she could not leave.
Okay.
So we had that issue, but that's perfectly understandable. If you're the only one there, you can't leave.
Yeah, no, but she's working well with the surveyors, and most of the issue that we had wasn't that we weren't doing what they wanted. They just have a short time frame that they ask you to have it there, and with a new person there who hadn't been there but a couple of weeks, putting her hands on the 800,000 things they were asking for, she couldn't put her hands on a couple of them, and so.
Oh yeah,
and we're working through a plan to fix that, and she's going to be wonderful.
Yeah.
She's a great add to the hospital.
And let's put it, I don't know if anybody's ever been out there through a restaurant survey when they come and inspect you. They look for things wrong.
Yep.
And when they see a thing wrong, it doesn't mean that, oh my God, you're going to shut down.
Yep.
It's just they have to highlight it to show that they're actually doing their job to their employers.
Yep. And
that's what they're doing.
And frankly, the things that we weren't able to provide, we should have been able to, and we will the next time. It's just
that one time.
It was an inconvenient time because we had new players on the team. Now that once we get through the new players on the team and they get their sea legs under them, that's going to be a completely different. It's going to be a completely different experience. But I will echo that that from a clinical perspective, I have no hesitation to recommend what they do there.
Very good. So still looking for some people in a number of different avenues. We still are looking for nurses, and if you're interested in that or know somebody who might be, have them get in touch with Ashley or have them get in touch with the hospital. You can go online and also see the positions that are open.
Yep.
And you're looking for now a CFO now.
We're looking for a CFO.
Okay.
We had that conversation with Joanne. I know Joanne has sat in here a lot, and she did yeoman work. But again, we need, sort of back to that whole financials thing. She was very good at what she did, but understanding the nuances of healthcare finance is really tough. And knowing it from pillar to post is not something that she was trained with.
No.
So that's not in any way to disparage her. She did a wonderful job. We just needed somebody and I'd hoped that they would mentor her, but she decided to do something different, which I respect. But now we've got some good candidates who have critical access hospital experience and can sort of help us build the infrastructure and the groundwork for what we need for.
When people think fund accounting, it can't be that hard, right? Let me tell you, fund accounting is an endless stream on an Excel spreadsheet because you have people that make donations and they're committed to a department. That has to stay there until it's used for that department. And you have to keep track of it as an account. Every one of those donations or foundations, money raisers, anything like that has to be kept separate. That can be a nightmare.
Well, and not just that, but how so in order to account for the things that we do, we charge a certain rate, which we never get. Some of that you get a deduction. It's sort of like having a coupon, either Medicare, Medicaid. So you have to figure out how to account for that.
Sure.
And then there's a certain percentage of that that's owed by the patient. You have to account for that. And then you have to account for the part that you did or didn't get from, and all of those pieces alone. And how do you get those booked? And to be able to, because we're a critical access hospital, how do you make sure that those things that drop to bad debt get accounted for appropriately so that when you get to your cost report, you can claim them? And that was one of the things that we've not been able to do for the last couple of years, and we'll be able to do whenever we start to prepare.
Right. There's a lot more to it than people think, and trying to do all that, it can make you pull your hair out a little bit, especially when you're learning it, because it's something you wouldn't do in any other business. It is very unique to a hospital.
It is very unique, and and I've talked to people who run small businesses and run large businesses, and when we talk about the differences in finances, they're very glad they're in their business and not mine.
Very good. I know we don't have much time, so is there anything that I know we're doing a real quick summary. Normally we do a lot more detail, but Is there anything else that in the meeting that you'd like to bring
So,
out
yeah,
here?
I will say that if you will look soon, you will start to see some new ambulances hit the road. It took us far longer than I ever would have thought to find somebody who could wrap those appropriately, but we've got a couple of design decisions to make, and we're letting our EMS folks weigh into that, so that because we want them to be proud of them.
Sure.
But I think you'll see when you see those hit the road, they'll be very nice.
All right, very
nice.
good, very good. And I think you had a new purchase in dialysis, did you not?
No, we did not have
Did
that.
I?
We're still
working on that?
Still working on
Okay,
that.
so that one's not done yet. Okay.
Yeah, well, I will say that one of the things that came out of the lab survey, and actually we already had this en route, was we got a freezer for the lab.
Right.
So some of the freezers that we had in there. Now we've got really good lab equipment, and when you walk through, it is amazing. And as a quick aside, the lab equipment, radiology equipment, the equipment that we have in that hospital is second to none.
Right.
And when you have a 50-year-old hospital, you will always have some holes in there. And one of those was our freezers, who a couple of them were old enough to vote. So we're going to let them. We're going to
Some
let
of them were on Social Security.
Yes, some of them we're going to let out, and so we've replaced one of those, and then we'll be replacing the other one soon. So that'll do two things. One, it will allow us and two of the runs that we were using were residential freezers, which doesn't sound bad, except for they're not designed to be opened all day. They're designed for you to have a brisket in there and take it out once a week and then close it up, and it's fine. They're not designed to be opened all day, and these are.
Right.
So they can keep it cold, and so that'll help.
And plus, they also show your temperature on the outside, so you know. And I think the one freezer you bought for the lab department was it was the same size as the other one, but it had much higher capacity.
Much higher capacity. So when we have two of those, which we will have soon, we will split up our reagents and our testing materials into two freezers, but we will have room for them to go into one in the event that there's ever an issue with one of our freezers. So we won't be dependent on one.
Always have a backup.
So
that's a good idea.
Always have, yeah.
Always have a backup. Sir, anything else you want?
Well, I just appreciate, and we will get our calendar straight, so I apologize.
No, that's okay. I mean, we had a heads up, and I knew you're going to have to hustle it up a little bit today,
Thank
but
you.
I always
We appreciate
it.
you so much.
Oh, well, thank you, Wayne. Appreciate that. Wayne Reid, CEO of Salem Memorial District Hospital. We'll take a little more time next time.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Yes, sir. Thank
Good to
you.
see you.